what we had been dealing with the last few years and things. And now on the right-hand side is what will be happening going forward. So no longer will there be hard freeze watches or hard freeze warnings. That being said, you're still going to know what type of freeze you're expecting, whether it's a light freeze or a hard freeze. That's because when the National Weather Service issues a freeze watch or a freeze warning, in the text of the alert that they send out and that we will be passing on to you at home, we will pass along whether we're expecting a hard freeze or a light freeze. So light freeze or hard freeze will be in the text, especially if it is a hard and deep cold freeze with temperatures way down in the 20s. That will be mentioned even though it will be a freeze warning that you get and not a hard freeze warning. But we don't end there, Esme. There's more consolidation on the way. You ready for more?
Yes.
Okay, good. I love your excitement and enthusiasm because we're also changing out wind chill advisories. So previously, we had extreme cold watches, wind chill watches, extreme cold warnings, wind chill warnings, and wind chill advisories. So wind chill related alerts are going away. There will be no longer an alert that begins with wind chill. Instead, the general theme will be about, is it going to be cold or will it be extremely cold? Now that will factor in both the air temperature as well as how it will feel, which is the wind chill. So the wind chill is still going to be represented well by these various advisories and warnings. But bottom line is you don't need wind to have dangerous cold. If it is 10 below zero and you have no wind, you can't issue a wind chill warning if there's no wind, right? You would think. So instead, what they're going to be doing is just cold warnings, cold watches, and cold advisories. Now, warnings are sort of the top level. Extreme cold warning, it means it's about as cold as it's ever going to get. Cold advisories, sure, it's dangerous cold, but it's not to the extent of an extreme cold warning. And then at the top there, the extreme cold watch. That's what the National Weather Service will issue, say, a couple of days ahead of time when they haven't necessarily decided on going toward either that top end extreme cold warning or the lower degree cold advisory. So this is a little easier to understand. It's more how you and I would talk anyway. Is it cold outside or is it extremely cold outside? And that's going to be represented here in these new warnings. So no longer will we have wind chill advisories if it's going to be cold because of the wind, but not extremely cold. We'll get cold advisories instead. What do you think?
I think that's interesting, but with the winter that we're having this year, I don't think we'll be using that freezing warning.
You never know. You know, here in Central Texas, that's a good point. We've got several different National Weather Service offices that oversee our weather here. And these different offices may all have different criteria for what it takes to get an extreme cold warning or watch in place. Just moving the map a little bit so that you can see. But the bottom line is most of our 15 county viewing area is covered by the Austin and San Antonio offices. That is one office based in New Braunfels. And they will have their own criteria for cold advisories or extreme cold watches and warnings. But just to our east is the Houston office. To the north of us, which also includes Milam and Lampasas counties, is the Fort Worth office. And then there's the San Angelo office that covers San Saba and Mason counties. And there's likely to be different criteria for these watches and warnings and advisories for the different offices. So one area may get an advisory and one may get an extreme cold warning, even though we're expecting similar temperatures in both places. That's because the criteria may end up being different. Now, the local National Weather Service office out of Austin and San Antonio hasn't publicly yet released what criteria they will be using for these brand new watches, warnings, and advisories. The cold advisory, the extreme cold advisory, the extreme cold warning, the extreme cold warning or extreme cold watch or cold advisory. Now I've got it set. But once they release that criteria, then we'll have a better idea what each office is using and what type of thing to look at. By the way, of course, we're still months away likely from our first freeze in most places. Only in parts of the Western Hill Country do we, on average, get somewhere near a freeze at the end of October. most of us are waiting well into November, if not into December, for our first freeze. So that'll be the first test of these new watches and advisories here, will be when we get our first freeze. Even if it's a hard deep freeze, we'll just get a freeze watch or freeze warning instead of those hard freeze warnings. But it still looks like it would be several weeks away before we're even diving into that, Esme.
And I know that you worked on a article about this. Where can we find that? Let us know.
Yeah, so that's on kxan.com. And while we're talking about it now, the subject of matter here on Tuesdays is Nick's First Warning, where we try to look ahead into the future and give you a preview of what to expect. So yeah, on kxan.com, I've got this little breakdown of the consolidation efforts by the National Weather Service to fine-tune some of the watches and warnings and advisories that they use. So you can look at it now, go ahead, read it, stay on it as long as you'd like. That'd be great. But you'll probably want to save this for the winter time as well, because that's when it will apply to you more. You may wonder, what is this new extreme cold warning that I'm getting with? Why am I not getting a wind chill warning when it's windy and cold out? Well, instead, you'll probably get a cold advisory instead. So this article is going to help explain the differences between the two there.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us, Nick. If anyone wants to catch you on air, when can they find you? Yeah, we'll be on at 4 o'clock here in less than an hour. Of course, we'll have the latest on major hurricane Milton as well, heading toward Florida. Don't want to forget about that storm, but we'll have an updated report on that coming up in about 40 minutes. Perfect. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. And that's all we have today on Nick's First Warning Weather here at KXAN Live. We'd love for you to join us tomorrow and into the rest of the week. I'm Esmeralda Zamora. Thanks for watching.